In today's reality, customers are moving from legacy PBXs to unified communications. Admin staff and personal assistants who need to answer, monitor, and organize calls and meetings for their bosses have found that Skype for Business can make this difficult. Actions that were very easy and intuitive in their legacy PBXs are now much more complex. Overnight, admin staff have had to adapt to new methodologies, new scenarios, and new designs that can negatively impact their work and productivity. AudioCode's Boss Admin functionality takes advantage of the 440HD's integrated sidecar and the 450HD's large touchscreen to replicate the simplicity of the legacy workflow. This eliminates the long and complicated process of managing and answering calls using only a main screen, where there isn't usually enough room to see all the necessary information in one place. AudioCode's designed and built the 450HD executive phone with a large touchscreen, displaying all the information a manager is ever likely to need. The 440HD admin phone has an integrated sidecar for managing every aspect of each boss's call queue, allowing admins to easily switch between each boss's line and their own speed dials. This makes it very straightforward to manage workflows. In this example, let's imagine there are two admins, Madison and Karen, who work for David. Karen also works for Daniel. David needs to see all his calls and communicate directly with Madison and Karen. Let's see how this appears on the AudioCode's phones. In the upper left corner, David can see his admins, Madison and Karen, and the number of calls they are managing on his behalf. David can see his delegate's presence indication, and by clicking on their key name, he can activate an intercom to communicate with them. He can also see his line's list of calls and review them with a designated number before the call. He can click View Detailed Call List and see a list of all the calls and which of his admins is managing each call. He can click any held call at any time to pick it up. In addition, private calls can be made from the boss's line and hidden from the admins. Karen and Madison need to be able to see all the calls that are for David or their other bosses and to pick up and handle these calls. By default, the integrated sidecar displays the user's speed dials. If the admin has more than one boss, the admin can see each of the boss's lines. All the admin needs to do is long press one of the boss's lines, and the sidecar will be refreshed to reflect that specific boss's call status. Admin staff can now manage their boss's calls without losing sight of the sidecar. Here, complete status information on all of the calls in the boss's queue, such as hold and active, is displayed. They can see the list of calls they answered with the designated line number, and also the calls their colleagues answered. They can pick up held calls, and so can the boss. By clicking on the top button, they can switch between the boss's line and their speed dials. Back to our example. Karen wants to check David's line. If Karen clicks on David's line, she can see the calls that she is managing on his behalf on the integrated sidecar marked in green, and the call Madison is handling marked in red. By clicking on the top button on the sidecar, the view switches back to her speed dial. If she needs to transfer a call to one of her speed dial contacts, this can be done very easily in two simple steps. She clicks the transfer button, selects the required speed dial, and the call is transferred. Now, a new call comes in. Karen answers the call and puts it on hold. She can click on the boss's button to activate an intercom to ask him to pick up line number 3. The boss, David, simply presses the call list icon, and with a single click, he picks the call on line 3. It's that simple. The AudioCode's IP phone solution's Boss Admin function is very simple and intuitive. It is easy to understand the line 1 and line 2 designations, and one click on the desired line is all that is needed to answer the call. AudioCode's IP phones are really very simple, and as we've said, simplicity is everything.